Right now, we're going to jump into our 99 questions about the college football season series. We are 38 days away from week 0, so we are nearing the final third of our 99 questions about the college football season. Today, the question is inspired by Dabo Swinney, Clemson head coach, and the question is, will the expanded playoff lead to more apathy, lead to more players not seeming to care? Dabo Swinney had some thoughts. I have some quotes in front of me. Let's first hear from Dabo himself.
You'll probably see some guys, if you're 4-4 and probably out of the playoffs, probably see some guys head off to Arizona and train. It's probably an unintended consequence. You'll probably see some situations where, like you see in the NFL, the Ravens are in the playoffs. They got it locked up, right? They got the bye or whatever, and well, they got one more game that really means nothing, right? Because it's all about the playoffs. So do you play Lamar in that game? And that's probably an unintended consequence in college, from a tradition standpoint is, maybe you're 11-0 and you got that rivalry game. But, you play your biggest foe next week in the conference championship. And if you win that game, you're going to get a bye, so those are things that are probably decisions you'll see play out all throughout college football.
Dabo Swinney needs – here's what I think Dabo Swinney needs. And
stop talking?
Maybe. But we can't tell him that, right, because he thinks he knows better. Dabo Swinney needs a group chat with his high school friends. He needs somebody that knows him from way back to just be like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. Does he think having more teams eligible for the college football playoff means there's going to be more teams that don't care about the last couple games? More teams will care about the last couple games, right? When the college football playoff was 4 teams, you could lose game 1 of the season. And if it's to the wrong team, right? If it's to a team that's not seen as good, your hopes are done. The rest of the year, you're not making the college football playoff. Now, because the power conference champions all automatically make it in, you could lose your first 3 games. If they're all non-conference, you're still playing as hard as you possibly can to go win the conference because you might make the college football playoff. This is the opposite of what you're saying. When he says you'll see some guys, if you're 4-4 and out of the playoffs, will probably head off to Arizona and train for the NFL. Well, what about teams that were 6-2 last year and were already out of the playoffs? If you're 6-2 with a 4-team playoff and your 2 losses are to not top 25 teams, you're done. If you're 6-2 with the current playoff, you still think if you win out, you have a chance. Matter of fact, I know if you win out, you have a chance because you'd win your conference. It's the exact opposite. Second of all, if you're Dabo Swinney, if your guys are quitting because you're 4-4, that's your fault. Motivate.
Right.
You're the coach. If they're quitting because they can't win a college football playoff, they didn't buy into any other goal you set for them.
I know a lot of people, and maybe even Dabo Swinney, went based on what he's saying, you can look and use Florida State as an example last year against Georgia. But the only difference is that all those guys that opted out were going to the NFL or transferring, and also they knew that they were out of the college football playoffs contention.
The bowl games will be a problem, right? All the other bowl games. But now there's more bowl games that do matter towards the college football playoff. Last year, there were 3 bowl games that contributed to the national championship, right? The 2 semifinals and the final. That's 4 teams that cared going into bowl season if you believe they only care about the college football playoff. Well, now there's 12 teams. That's a bunch more games, and that's 8 more teams that care if you operate under the conceit that only college football teams going for the playoff care. The other thing is, and it's the second part of the quote, I'll read it for you. You just heard it from Dabo himself, but I'll give you a refresher. Maybe you're 11-0 and have a rivalry game, but you have your biggest foe the next week in a conference championship, and if you win that game, you're going to get a bye. Those are things that you'll see play out through college football. Well, first of all, that's competition, right? And you do see that at the NFL. If you think somebody has like a locked up top seed, you might see that. Does he honestly think anyone is going to complain if you rest starters because you've already secured a spot in the college football playoff? If NC State lives up to all their enormous potential this year, right? And all their transfers ball out, and they beat Tennessee, and they beat Clemson, and they beat everybody on their roster, and they're going into the North Carolina game undefeated.
Right.
And they decide, hey, you know what? Grayson McCall has a tweaked ankle. We're going to give him the day off. I think NC State fans would be like, oh, darn. But they're still the most excited they've been in however many years because they get to go to the college football playoff.
I mean, is it also on what North Carolina's season looks like at that point? Like, is North Carolina still trying to battle for bowl contention, and you're willing to be not a sacrificial lamb, but you're willing for them to become bowl eligible by resting some guys in that final game of the season?
Winning a national championship should be the most important thing to every team.
I don't know. I feel like Dave Dorr would love to win 5 straight, though, against Carolina.
Of course he would. But if not at the expense of winning a national championship. A national championship has to be the number one goal of every team. If you make your decisions based on what's going to win us a national championship, you're never going to hear me complain about that. Because it's competition and that's what matters. Especially in this scenario that he brought up, it's not costing you a conference championship. Right? You're still going to try to win the conference championship the next year. You work hard to get to those places. The Dabo Swinney of it all is he thinks this makes sense. And he doesn't have anyone in his life going, buddy, that's backwards. Right? He walks off of that podium and he has everybody going like, great job, awesome. You're for the future of sports. And he needs somebody that like knows him well enough that can slap him out of it in a phone call or a text that he won't get mad at or something. Because right now he doesn't have anybody raising their hand saying, Dabo, if it would have happened, it would have already happened. Right? If you think guys would sit out regular season games to go train for the NFL, it would have already happened. Because you knew these past however many years we've been in the college football 14 playoff, if you were eliminated by week 8. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9, The Fan. Dabo being Dabo. Still won't accept a transfer, by the way.
Put that on a t-shirt. Dabo being Dabo.
He would make an acronym for Dabo, and it would mean something completely outlandish. Completely outlandish.